Hi everyone, today I'm going to be doing BookTube Connections, part 1 of 2. This is essentially a shout out video where everyone I mention I talk to quite often, and I feel as though if we met in person we'd get on quite well and would be able to have a really interesting conversation about books or whatever else we happen to have an interest in. And I honestly would genuinely like to meet every single one of the people that I'm going to talk about. There will be 6 people in this part and 6 people in the next part, which will be uploaded next week. So on to the 6 people that I'm going to talk about. The first of which is Paige, her channel being Enchantology. Paige is the very first person that I can remember subscribing to. She was the first person to subscribe to my channel that I can remember, and also she's the first person that I ever actually got to know on BookTube or YouTube, whatever you want to call it. Now, other than being just generally amazing, Paige is a very down-to-earth person and a very honest person, and I always think of her as being the sort of person where she's exactly what she seems to be. She does not put on airs or graces. She appears to be a really nice person, and she is a really nice person. As far as books go, her primary genre is fantasy, followed closely by YA and science fiction, and she reads some pretty interesting books, and she has actually made me, well not made me, encouraged me I should say, to buy quite a few, so I'm quite grateful for that. So the second person that I'm going to talk about is Elizabeth from Books and Pieces. She is the first heavy science fiction person that I ever got to know. She reads lots of science fiction and lots of really interesting and books that I would never otherwise come across if it weren't for her. I always think of her for 3 things: science fiction, costumes and beer. Not strictly in that order. I always think of her as being quite strong-minded, and she's also somebody who knows her mind really well. She doesn't take fault lightly, and it's something that I like because I think it shows in her channel and gives the channel a very unique feel to it. Now, as far as books go, she obviously reads lots of science fiction, but she also reads fantasy, and is one of the few people I know who is probably just as heavily interested in Teapotch and the Discworld as I am. And she does videos where she's talking about science fiction books dressed up in various appropriate costumes, and they're always just brilliant to watch, so I'd advise you to go to her channel if that sounds at all interesting. It really is, by the way. The third person I'm going to talk about is Katie from her channel Katie Ruby. I always think Katie has been a really cheerful and upbeat person, and she's a very optimistic person, which I really appreciate because I consider myself to be an optimist. She's also one of the first people I may end up meeting, because I'm going to a little London meetup this following Saturday, and I believe she will be there as well, so I may actually be able to say hello to her in person, which would be nice. As far as books go, she reads quite a wide variety of books, but there is a quite heavy emphasis on literary fiction, and she always does really thoughtful and interesting reviews and things. The fourth person I'm going to talk about is Aaron from his channel See the Sun. I've always thought of Aaron as being a very practical, hands-on person who's very, very capable. He is not the sort of person who would worry about unexpected things. He'll just accept it, figure out what to do and do it, and this is obviously a trait that is always good to have. He's also a very musical person as well, and he does do musical related videos where he's singing and playing his guitar, which is always good to watch. As far as books go, he reads literary fiction, and he's one of the few people I know who has talked about Cormac McCarthy, who is an author that I love, if you didn't know. So I always appreciate that. He reads some pretty interesting books and gives some very detailed and thoughtful views on whatever it is that he happens to be reading. The fifth and penultimate person that I'm going to talk about is Chris from The Reading Road. First of all, I love the channel name that he's chosen. Obviously, The Reading Roads, Roads being his surname, nice double meaning. I've always just liked that name, and it's one of my favourite channel names of almost anybody, actually, honestly. I always think of Chris as being very softly spoken, but really well spoken, and he's really thoughtful with what he says. I cannot imagine Chris ever raising his voice for any reason, even if it's just to try and talk loudly across a room in a crowd. I still can't even imagine him doing that. He's just too calm for that, to me. He does some absolutely amazing reviews. I know many other people think that he does reviews really well, mainly because it happens to be a fact he does do reviews brilliantly. And as far as books go, his primary genre is probably fantasy, with some classics, a little bit of science fiction, and it's just mainly every other genre really thrown in the background as well, but it is mainly fantasy. The last person I'm going to talk about is Nicole, from Nicole's Adventures in Science Fiction, who has the longest channel name of anybody that I am personally subscribed to, as a side note. I always think of Nicole as being very organised and very efficient with whatever she does. She works in a laboratory with advanced machines, and she also has a chinchilla called Microphage. So that is very appropriate if you know what she actually does in a laboratory. I always just think it's a brilliant name for a chinchilla, and it always makes me smile. She also really thinks in depth about books or whatever else she happens to be talking about, and her thoughts on things are really interesting and often really quite insightful. And talking about books, her choice in them is science fiction heavy. She's actually just as heavily into science fiction as Elizabeth is, and myself actually. She also reads fantasy with most other genres thrown in the background, a bit lighter. With that said, that's pretty much it for this video. Part 2 of this video will be uploaded this time next week. If you are subscribed to any of the people, or subscribed to any of them because of this video, then please let me know. The links to all 6 of the people's channels will be found in the description box below, of course, along with all my social media links, as they always are. And with that said, that is finally this video. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you another day. Bye for now.